Mice at Center Ice, Chapter 8, The Garbage Truck. Trapped in the wheelbarrow with the ice, Benny looked up at the ugly face staring down at him. It was even uglier than that of Big Boris. The face belonged to a man with a bald head, bulging eyes streaking with red veins, and a stubble of black beard. "What have we here?" asked Jake. "A mouse. Must have scooped him up with my shovel. Tough little fellow, though, aren't you?" Benny's heart pounded in his chest. He couldn't have moved if his life depended upon it, which it did. The man reached a hairy hand into the opening, picked Benny up by the tail, and dangled him in the air. "Well, we can't just have mice in the forum," Jake said aloud. "I'll just throw you in the garbage." The man walked outside and tossed Benny into a big container beside the door. Benny landed in a heap of junk: papers, boxes, hot dogs, and spoiled fruits and vegetables. The man dusted off his hands and wiped them on his pants. "Happy landing," he shouted with a coarse laugh. Benny stood up in a mountain of garbage. He thought about his situation. Things could be worse, he decided. He had survived the harrowing ordeal on the Zamboni, only to be dumped into a garbage bin. Besides his dignity, nothing was hurt. And he had escaped from the rink rats. Now all he had to do was crawl out and hurry back to the forum. His team would be lost without him, he knew. Although Benny was surrounded by more food than he had ever seen before, he didn't feel the least bit hungry. His only concern was for the cheddar cup. He hoped that Pepe and Figaro had wheeled it home from their locker room before the rink rats found it. Benny smiled as he thought of the merry chase through the tunnels. He was sure the cup must be safe by now. From St. Catherine Street, Benny heard a loud clanking noise. The Zamboni again? Should he lie low and wait for the noise to go away? Perhaps he would make a run for it before it was too late. He scrambled along the edge of the container to the top and looked out. A truck pulled to a stop beside him. Benny saw number 51 painted on its side. "You've got a passenger, Sam," the man with the bald head yelled from the doorway. "I just threw a mouse into the garbage." "Well, he'll find lots of company down at the dump," the driver laughed. "This is my last stop tonight. See you a bit earlier tomorrow night, Jake. Maybe you can get me in to watch the last period." "No problem," said Jake. "Come in through the back door, Sam." He waved. The driver shoved a lever. The back end of the truck clanged and rattled as the hydraulic lift lowered towards the container. Benny felt himself being lifted into the air, along with the garbage, and dumped into the back of the truck. He landed with a heavy thud. Garbage of all kinds showered down on Benny. An apple core and 2 paper cups struck him in the head. When he opened his mouth, he swallowed wet coffee grounds. The papers, boxes, and rotting food continued to cover Benny until he was buried beneath the trash. He thought he would suffocate if he didn't get air. At last, the rattling and clanking noises stopped. The driver shifted into gear and, with a lurch, the truck pulled away from the forum. Benny fought his way to the top of the heap. He watched his home disappear down the street. It was splendid, he thought proudly. No wonder so many people came to such a beautiful building. The forum had been his home, the only home he had ever known. Benny wiped a tear from his eye as he jolted and bounced along the street on the back of the number 51 dump truck. The city was very bright, Benny thought. In the distance he saw the lights of Mount Royal sparkling in the night sky. A cross glittered on top of the mount. Lights shone everywhere. Buildings glowed and neon signs blinked on and off. But nowhere were the lights as bright as the Forum when the NHL teams took to the ice in a hockey game. As the truck picked up speed at the outskirts of the city, Benny wondered if he would ever see his beloved home again. The truck sped along an old dirt road. It was a rough ride. Benny had to concentrate all his attention on keeping his bones and ribs from being broken. Down a steep hill they went. Finally, the truck jolted to a stop. It was quiet for a moment. Benny wondered what would happen next. The clanking and creaking began again. Slowly, the back end of the truck lifted higher and higher into the air. Benny clung wildly to an iron ring, but lost his grip. He tumbled down into the open pit of garbage that yawned below. Benny sat in the darkness. He listened to the whining and screeching of the truck as the last bit of garbage fell. At last, the truck pulled away. Benny rummaged through the trash and made his way out to fresh air. He found the rough road the truck had used. Slowly he crawled along the track of the fresh tire marks. Every bone in his body ached. Overhead, the full moon shone in the sky. Thousands of stars twinkled. Benny had never seen anything quite like it. But the sky only reminded him of the many lights outside the Forum. Benny felt absolutely and utterly alone. More alone than he had ever felt in his life. He wondered what Figaro and Pepe were doing now. He would give anything to be home with them. He yawned sleepily and closed his eyes. It had been a long, hard night. At last Benny fell into a fitful sleep.